Hey, social studies students. So today we are going to go through how to write a source or interpretation assignment. You will see these all throughout grade 10, 11, and 12, and you will also see this on your grade 12 diploma. It's where we interpret sources and identify relationships. So let's jump in. So what is it? So basically there are two elements to a source interpretation, and both must be addressed or you fail, and we don't want that. The first element is you're going to be given three sources in which you must interpret each source, explain the perspective of the source, and discuss how it links between globalization in grade 10, nationalism in grade 11, or ideology or liberalism in grade 12. The second part is you have to identify and explain one or more of the relationships that exist among all three sources. So what does it look like? Here you will see an example that is taken directly from a grade 12 diploma. There are three sources. If you take a closer look, you can see each of the three sources talk about democracy and its pros and cons. The next thing you're going to see is the assignment. So like I said, first you will be given the three sources, and then you will be given the assignment, which is taken straight from your diploma there too. So your job is to analyze the message of each source and connect to its importance. Let's take a closer look at each of those bullet points. So the first element of a source quotation is the first bullet in the assignment. This is when you interpret each source and demonstrate your understanding of how each source links to liberalism. So for each source, this is what you need to do. And if you don't do it, you will fail. So you need to explain what is happening. So what is the explicit meaning? So what do you see? What is happening in that source? What is the implicit meaning? So what is the deeper meaning of that source? The next thing is you have to explain the main message of the source. So what is the author, photographer, cartoonist want the viewer to understand? So what is that source telling us? You need to relate that source to the concepts that you've learned in your social studies course. So this means you have to use key vocabulary, historical and contemporary examples. Think about your four related issues. Does the source provide an opportunity or challenge? You must do this for all three sources. Each source will need a paragraph of its own. If you don't do a paragraph of its own, you will fail. So the second element is the second bullet point. And it says explain one or more of the relationships that exist among all three sources. And below there, you can see a definition. So a relationship is a significant connection between two or more things. So how do you do that? So first, you got to consider all three sources and find connections between all three sources. Like I said before in the example I used, they were all connected through democracies. So for example, all three sources discuss ideas that influence democracy has and how it represents the will of the people. Give reasons to why all these sources connect. So you need to compare the sources. So compare sources 1 and 2, 1 and 3, and 2 and 3. What do they have in common? So for example, both sources 1 and 2 address the topic of authoritarian states are more effective because they do not have to deal with the problems democracies face. You can discuss the sources individually, but I don't recommend it. You must connect to the other sources or you will fail, and we don't want that. Okay, so let's go through formats now that we went through the planning part. So format number 1 is my favorite, and it's also the easiest, so I suggest you do it, is where you kind of go through paragraphs 1, 2, 3, and you write a paragraph for each source, kind of like we went through before. State the explicit and implicit message of the source. Connect to social info, background information, people, events. So evidence, include evidence. tell me the author's point of view. And again, link back to globalization if you're in grade 10, nationalism in grade 11, and liberalism in grade 12. Okay, so paragraph 4 is where you will talk about the overall theme of all three sources. So can start with a connecting sentence. This can be a question or a statement. Then you have to give me one or more sentences about how all three connect. Then you start comparing. So what do 1 and 2 have in common? What do 1 and 3 have in common? What do 2 and 3 have in common? And then you want to write a concluding sentence about the assignment theme. Format 2 is the hardest, and it's not my favorite. Basically, you do 3 paragraphs where you analyze the source, and then you connect to the relationships between globalization, nationalism, and liberalism embedded in the paragraph. It's a little harder, and I don't recommend it, but if you want to give it a try, go ahead. Just make sure that you include all those things we talked about. Okay, so here is what you want to avoid in a source interpretation. You do not want to use personal language or personal words. That means you can't use I, my, your, me, we, our, and more. So think of it this way. It's wrong if you say, I think that this is an economic dimension of liberalism. Instead, state it as a fact. This is an economic dimension of liberalism. Also, you do not want to paraphrase the sources instead of interpreting. No marks will be awarded to students that rewrite the information in the source. You must interpret and explain what's going on, or you will fail. Okay, so here are some tips. Address both elements like we talked about. Interpret every source. That means explain what is happening, explain the purpose and the message, relate to social studies knowledge, and use examples. Examples are key. Find clear and valid relationships. So what relationships are evident, and explain your links. What does it mean? Also, proofread your finished copy. Make sure everything makes sense and your writing and everything is on par. You want to proofread to make sure you are doing a good job. So here is a rubric. It's located on your course homepage, so take a look at it, familiarize yourself with it. If you have any questions about how to write a source interpretation, you can give me a call at 780-864-1615 or email me at heatherdunsworth@pwsd76.ab.ca. I hope this video helped, and I look forward to seeing all your great source interpretations this year. Have a great day.